Welcome to episode 89 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Tony Alupus, who wrote an indie drama called Safelight. He talks very openly about how he got this movie made and how he jump-started his career, so stay tuned for that. This episode is brought to you by Final Draft. When inspiration strikes, strike back with the Final Draft Writer app for iPad and iPhone. Carry your scripts in your pocket for writing on the go, then easily sync back to your desktop using Dropbox integration. Start your writing career with the industry standard Final Draft. Visit finaldraft.com to learn more. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking us on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they are very much appreciated. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 89. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide: how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I'm working on. I'm still plugging away on my crime action thriller. I'm basically in pre-production at this point, really starting to get some of the pieces in place. I've got a bunch of meetings set up for this week. I'm meeting with some distributors. I've known them for a while. They actually distributed a film and worked in a co-distributing relationship on another film that I did a couple of years ago. They are actually on my email and fax blast list. So when I was doing an email blast for one of my scripts, they actually got my pitch and emailed me back and said, hey, we distributed this film that you wrote a couple of years ago. Come in and meet with us. I met with them. It was probably 18 months ago. They were thinking about producing some stuff on their own. They were looking for a writer, so I met with them. They never quite got anything together. They were looking for a very specific idea, and I just don't think they ever quite figured out what that idea was. So we've been in touch over the months, but nothing has come to fruition on that front in terms of writing a script for them. But I recently watched a feature film that a friend of mine did. I thought it was excellent. It was an actiony, kind of like a martial arts action fist fighting type of a film. Pretty low budget, but very, very well done. And I mentioned to this friend, hey, I know these guys, these distributors, you want me to pass it along? He said, yeah, please do. So I just sent to them an email, said, hey, I have this friend who has a great film. You guys should check it out. And by the way, I'm looking at putting together my own film. So from that, they said, oh, well, come in and meet with us to tell us about your film. So I'm now going to go in and talk to them, just basically tell them what I've got and what I'm doing with it. And then I'm going to hopefully just listen and kind of hear their thoughts. There's probably a bunch of things. Getting a distributor involved early is really the smartest thing you can do. A film I wrote a couple of years ago called Ninja Apocalypse, the quality of the film is somewhat suspect, but one of the smart things that those producers did was they got distributors involved very, very early. And I remember when they hired me to write the script, they were working with the distributors, and the distributors were dictating a lot of the script changes, a lot of the direction of the script. Just really from the onset, they were dictating what the script was going to be about and that kind of thing. And this is a really smart thing because the distributors really understand the markets and they understand what can sell. They understand what's currently selling. They understand what might sell in a year when you get this film done. So that's kind of my hope, is I'm going to meet with these guys. Obviously, if I can get them on board somehow with this film, that would be ideal to actually have a distributor in place before I even shoot the movie. But even if I can't do that, even if they just, aren't interested in this film, hopefully they'll just give me some friendly advice and pointers about what they see is selling. I'm going to tell them about my story. I'm going to kind of pitch what I've got going in terms of actors, in terms of cast, and hopefully just get their ideas and hopefully they can give me some good pointers and head me in the right direction, just really from soup to nuts on who would be good to cast. I mean, obviously it's a micro budget film, but there are certain actors out there that might be interested in doing this and might have some sales value. Different actors really have different values, and it's not always as intuitive as you might think. As far as, obviously the top actors, Tom Cruise, obviously it's pretty intuitive that he's, a big box office star, but there's a lot of sort of B and C level guys that they might be willing to be in a cool little indie micro budget film, but some of them do, and some of them don't necessarily have value in terms of foreign sales, what they can actually bring in terms of sales to the movie. So the only way to know this really is to talk to a distributor, because these numbers are constantly changing. And so the distributors might be able to just help me out on that front too. Say, listen, if you can get this guy in your movie, you should definitely be able to make your money back. So I'm meeting them tomorrow. I'm recording this on Monday. I'm meeting them tomorrow. Hopefully that meeting will go well. I'm also meeting a cinematographer who also runs a production company, the whole physical production. They can do post-production, editing, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be talking to him. I'm going to get a sense of the cost, what he's going to charge me. I've got a bunch of DPs, everybody in Hollywood kind of knows someone who can shoot a film. So I'm going to be talking to a bunch of different DPs, but this is my first meeting tomorrow. I saw some of the stuff that he's done. It looked pretty good. So I think he would be good for the project. It's just a matter of figuring out if I can afford to pay him. And I'm meeting with one of my main actors, hopefully this week as well. Maybe not till next week, but he read the script over the weekend. He's very much interested. He's someone I've been talking to for many, many months, and he is also a writer, director, and producer. He recently did his own independent feature film, and he wrote, directed, and produced it, and acted in it. And so he would be a great addition to the team, because he's kind of really been down this path before. He is in the process of selling his film. He's got distributors lined up, and he's out there selling the film. So again, he's going to be a great resource. He's a great actor as well. He would be very good just to have as an actor, but he's also a good businessman and will be a great asset just in terms of getting someone like that on board to help me with just, there's going to be innumerable decisions and things that need to happen. And he's sort of been through it very, very recently, just really in the last couple of years is when he did his independent film. So hopefully meeting with him this week, but that meeting might not be till next week. I've also been steadily just watching Kickstarter videos each night. I've donated to a few Kickstarter campaigns over the years, so I'm familiar with Kickstarter, but I don't really regularly watch the Kickstarter videos that people are making, or the, they give away the bonuses. If you donate money, they give you certain kickbacks. And so I'm just reading through those, trying to just really educate myself, because that's really going to be the first angle of attack. Once I kind of get some of the physical production stuff in place, once I get some of the actors on board, we're going to shoot a teaser trailer. We're going to shoot a little Kickstarter video. We're going to put all that up there. So every night I try and just watch, spend 30 minutes before I fall asleep just watching these Kickstarter videos and trying to educate myself. It seems like there's a big, some of them I look at and think, wow, these are really well done. Some of them I watch, think, these are kind of hacked together. And honestly, I don't see a big difference in the amount of money that's getting generated. Like, I'm looking at some that have a lot of money donated to them, and their videos don't seem that great. I haven't seen any that I was there, just terrible, but it doesn't seem to really have a correlation to how much money is being donated. And a lot of the stuff you can't tell. I'm curious to see. A lot of these, have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 have been funded to them. And there's not really any way of telling what they did to do that. Did this person have a big following before they started this movie? How did they raise that money? That's kind of the big question mark. Anyways, though, that's what I'm doing. I'm just educating myself on Kickstarter, meeting with some people, hopefully get this thing going. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing Tony Alupus. Here is the interview. Welcome, Tony, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Sure, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can give us a little bit about your background. How did you get started in the entertainment industry?
I was a musician for quite a long time, and towards the end of my stint as a musician, I started to become more and more interested in writing. So being a songwriter kind of led me to write a novel, and then I went from a novel to adapting that novel to a screenplay, and then going from there.
Okay. And tell us about that process. I get a lot of questions from people that have written novels and then they want to convert them into screenplays. Maybe you can give us some tips on that process. Did you have some success with that novel? And then did you have some success with that screenplay?
No success with the novel. I was working with a teacher at the time, or I guess in kind of a one-on-one situation, and so we worked through the novel. It was really my first foray into like a a serious product, or a serious piece. So as I worked through that, it seemed that my narratives needed some work, or my narrative needed work, and my dialogue was good and strong. So being the lazy person that I am, I asked my teacher, well, is there anything else I could write? She said, oh, I think you'd be perfect for screenplays. So that's kind of what I did. But it turned out that my background, well, I was a musician, but music as an art, I think, is kind of a structured creativity, and I think that's what a screenplay is. And then extended to directing a film, I think it follows in that. And I'm really completely ineffective if I'm just like left with no parameters and no rules to be creative. So that's what writing songs, and whether it's a 3-minute song or a 5-minute song, there's rules, kind of regulations, there's things that you need to do within that space. That's where I thought I was most comfortable and most effective, and the screenplay format worked really well for me. Additionally, I had gone to school for engineering, so my brain was always like kind of left and right. I have like this technical side, and then I have a somewhat creative side. So I really think that I found my niche and my comfort in screenwriting. So that's where I really kind of stumbled my way there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what did you do with this first screenplay once you were done with that first script adaptation?
I just at that time I just kind of just wrote again. I mean, my goal at the beginning was to write as much as I could. It is something that I had some interest in, but never really went anywhere with that. But it's still something that I can do. I can produce. I think it's still a good story, but it really was my first story. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of use that as a springboard to write more.
Perfect. And then, so how many scripts did you write over the course of this span, and how did you finally get one sold?
I wrote about 10 scripts, I'd say, and I actually, when the internet started to be more, connecting more and more people from different industries. I'm out on the East Coast, so I wasn't able to go door to door and try to get myself an agent or anything like that. So I used the internet to connect with producers looking for products. So it was actually a website at the time. It was called Inktip. Okay. Actually, I remember that, and that was a few years back. And I met the first producer who was associated with Safelight at that time. Then I moved on from him, and that was really how I started. I think today there are a lot more avenues to get your material considered by serious people than there were years ago, where you really had to go door to door. So I just kind of went that route and got it started, and here we are.
And so, okay, so let's take a step back. We're going to get into Safelight because that's your most recent project, which you wrote and directed. But just tell me quickly about your script for Sugar. Was that something you put on Inktip and found that? Did that? How did you go about getting that one sold?
Yeah, actually, Sugar was a write for hire for a producer that I was had a relationship with at the time, and he had the idea, gave me his thoughts, and basically I guess you'd say we worked on it together. It's a co-written, so I co-wrote that with the director, and then we actually. In the end, actually, I raised the money for that. So that wasn't as kind of sold to the marketer. I didn't go door to door trying to sell that.
Okay,
that was kind of a thing that he had interest in, the idea, or he pitched the idea to some salespeople, thought it would have some legs. So then we decided to write it. He asked me to come on board, and so that's what I did. And then, went from there and raised the money for it and shot it, and that was released.
Okay, and a couple questions just to clarify. How did you meet him originally? You said you had this relationship. Where did you actually meet him?
That was the original person I met through Inktip regarding Safelight.
Okay, perfect. And then you said you were the one who ultimately raised the money for Sugar. Maybe you can just walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah, well, I had started a small production company here. I'm in New Jersey, and with two neighbors. One's Carol Stark, and the other is Joe Krieg. And Joe was interested in financing films, and we talked about that project, about Safelight, and it seemed like Sugar could go quicker. It was a smaller budget than Safelight, so it was something we can do quicker. So he decided to take the plunge on that, and he was the executive producer of that film. Okay, perfect.
And I wonder if, just in broad strokes, can you tell us roughly how did that do in the marketplace? Did you guys recoup? Did you guys make a little bit of money? How did it do?
I'm not really sure how that ended up. I don't really. I wasn't involved in that as much as I am in Safelight. A co-writer, is you're the writer. You don't really have access to the goings on. Of getting the film, we post-production and then released. I know that I've talked to Joe about it a little bit, but I'm not really too sure how that did in the market.
Okay, perfect. Fair enough. So let's go ahead and dig into your recent film, which you wrote and directed, Safelight. And maybe you can just start out by giving us a pitch or a log line on that, in case people have not seen the trailer. I always link to the trailer in the podcast show notes, so people can definitely check it out. But maybe just pitch it to us so we kind of have an idea of what we're talking about here as we dig into it.
Well, that's a lot of pressure. I have to pitch now. I thought I was done pitching. Wow, this is difficult. I'm just kidding.
Just an informal log line.
I'm kidding. So I would say that. A teenage boy with cerebral palsy, working at a beaten down truck stop, befriends a runaway, and the two go on road trips to the California lighthouses, and along the way come of age and confront the problems that face them in their lives.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a good pitch. I watched the movie last night. They sent me a screener link. I really enjoyed it. Well done. It's a really interesting character piece. One of the things that, just as we started to talk here, really surprises me is that you said you're from the East Coast of New Jersey, and this is such a West Coast story. At least I live in Los Angeles, so I really identified. So I'm frankly surprised that you're from New Jersey. That whole sort of desert lifestyle outside of Los Angeles, outside of sort of the city, living in the desert. I felt like you captured that really well, sort of those people and why they're out there, and sort of the directionlessness of their lives. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit, of sort of where this idea came from.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. New Jersey has, I don't know, have you been to New Jersey?
Sure. My dad's actually from New Jersey, and I've spent some time there.
All right. So there are sections of southern New Jersey, which was where the script was actually originally written for this state, and the lighthouse is here. And one of them is actually the oldest one in the country. So the southern part of the state is a lot different than the middle or the north. So it is a lot more open, kind of rural, and while not a desert, it has, I would say, similar personalities and similar lifestyles and similar struggles. So that's where I'll start with that. In terms of the story itself, well, let me jump over to the desert. It's funny. the film, there are things when, you know, as an artist that you write, and sometimes you don't remember why or how you did these things, and it takes someone else to kind of point it out. And it's like, you know, hey, Tony, this would work really well in the desert. You know, you reference cowboys, you reference, you know, country music.
Mm-hmm.
There's just desolate. There's visuals of dust and you know, and everything that's out in the West. And I said, oh, I didn't realize that. So it was kind of one of those things where you know, I was a little slow to keep up, actually. So it does fit there. You know, I hope, and I'm glad that you felt it fit very well in terms of the type of people and their struggles and those personalities out there. But I do think that it is similar to certain parts of New Jersey, so I think that just happened to translate well.
Yeah, perfect. So maybe you can just take us back. Where did sort of the idea come from, the genesis of this idea, this handicapped you know, guy living at the truck stop and meeting the hooker and all that?
Yes, I was taking, you know, this writing teacher I had was in New York City, in Manhattan. I'd get to Manhattan by train, and you know, it was a regular class. So on the trip back from New York, there was a kid on the train who had a pretty bad case of cerebral palsy. It seemed to me that he was, it was more physical than anything, and it was pretty significant in its effect on his, you know, walking and getting around. There was something about the kid that struck me and affected me, and I also saw in his face that it seemed like he had kind of, I don't know, it just, at least the way I read him was that he kind of accepted that he did this, and he went to the city every week, and or at least the day that I went. Who knows, he might have been going there more frequently than that. So I basically wrote down that idea. And then I think at the time I was interested in partnering two characters that were kind of completely different. So for me, writing new scripts, I'll write down the idea, and then, you know, if I end up coming back to the idea or start to think about it, then it becomes, or can become, a script, and that's what happened with this story. Mm-hmm. So it's as simple as that.
And part of sort of the dramatic thrust is the photography contest, and going out and taking these pictures of the lighthouse. When did that sort of come in? It sounds like you really started with the characters, and then, you know, backed yourself into like you know, more of the three-act structure of sort of the, you know, it seems like the act break is when he says, okay, I'm going to go out and do this thing. Then they begin their journey. And so maybe it sounds like that maybe came later.
Yeah, it did. You're 100% correct. You know, it serves as the trip serves as a nice plot line for the character, a story to move. So we keep coming back to the trip. It also serves as a break from, I was trying to get them away from the desert and the beauty of the coast and what's there, which is contrasts the bleakness of their daily lives so much. That was very important. And on top of that, I think that I was looking for something to contrast his physical condition and to kind of show something that was, you know, kind of beautiful and tall and strong, and have him kind of stand next to it with his tripod. I thought that would, I don't know, I just thought that I liked that visual, and I thought it might play in an interesting way. So that's where that started. And then obviously the road trips are a way for them to get to know each other, and so that's kind of how that came about.
Okay. And maybe you can just take us sort of through, I always like to just delve into, you know, the actual writing process of the screenwriter. How long did it take you to write the script? What is your day-to-day, like, what does your day look like when you're in the process of writing?
If I'm full on writing, this script will take me 6 months. So that took me, it didn't take me more than 6 months. I would say 4 to 6. I do a lot of prep work or preliminary work. So I need to have the story really worked out before I'll even start writing. So for this particular story, like you said, those ads about the story, I'll develop it in terms of outlines. I'll identify all my scenes. I'll break them out into my acts. Obviously, for scripts, page 10, the first act start, the midpoint, the backslide, and then obviously our climax and our ending. So I need to have all those things worked out completely, and then I'll take I'll work on the characters. I'll do extensive biographies. Then I'll do relationships. I'll write all that. I like to write in first person when I do those things, and then after that's done, I'll go back to the scenes and I'll create I have these scene worksheets that I use, and I'll go through the 80 or 90 scenes that I have, and I'll do a worksheet on each one before I actually write. So if I start with a blank page, I'm useless. I need to have a lot of well, I might be useless anyway, but I'm more useless. So I really need to do all that prep work because it's very painful, to write. So, the blank page and all, I like to almost pre-write it without putting so much pressure on myself. Okay. So that's what I do.
So the 6-month timeline, that encompasses all of this prep work as well. So it's like three or four months of prep work, and then
exactly.
2 or 3 months of actual writing.
Correct. That's right.
And then how many, when you're actually in this 6-month period, how many hours per day does it take you to spend writing?
I would say, it's tough. The prep work, I'd say probably 3 to 4 at the most. Okay. I can't do too much in one sitting. It's so I'm like short bursts. Okay. I'd say.
And maybe you can elaborate a little bit on these worksheets. What are these scene worksheets that you do?
I kind of from various books and from teachers, I came up with certain things that I like to identify within each scene. So I'll actually break it down into each scene having a beginning, middle, and end. I'll identify that, the climax. I'll identify the purposes. I'll identify each character's purpose within the scene. I'll identify central images that might be particular to that scene, or a central image of the script that is carrying through that scene. I like to get into the senses and actually try to, in Safelight, there's a lot of coffee, and there's, those things kind of put me in the story a little bit more. So I like to talk about what senses are experienced within this scene, if there are, and a lot of times there's not. But and then I like to remember subtext and what's really going on in the scene, and then I'll try to. Sometimes I'll end up writing part of the scene on the worksheet itself, and that's helpful to me as well. And then I'll also like to identify where I think I'm going to come into the scene and where I'm going to get out of the scene. So I might have a beginning, middle, and end, but there also will be parts of that won't happen. So I might come in a little late or leave a little bit earlier than I originally planned.
Okay, that sounds like an interesting approach. Very, very interesting. So now let's sort of talk about, you've written this script, and what was sort of the next step? Once you have it, you type it out, and maybe you can even take us before starting to try and produce it. Do you have a bunch of friends that you get feedback? Maybe just tell us, sort of work through that first process of finishing it, sending it for feedback, rewriting it.
Yeah. Let's see. After the script is done, I don't really. There was a time earlier on when I would look for more feedback, more from teachers than anyone else. Right now, I would not necessarily do that. I would probably give it, at least at this point, let's say when Safelight was done, I didn't actually ask for opinions on it. So I just finished it, and done enough for my liking, I guess, or my tastes, and then I went ahead and tried to sell that along with some other scripts that I had. Right now, if I were to write something or newer things that I have now that we're developing, those are more likely to go out to, because I have more connections now to people that I trust, their opinion and what they've done, producers and such, to get their take on it and what they think might be better for the script, or how they might change the story, or might make it more marketable, or get me to a place where I could finance it and release it and make it more interesting, a complete story as well. Okay. So Safelight was really kind of very raw when it went out. It was not, it didn't go through, eventually it went through the process of the polish and the rewrites once we got in, actually once we were cast. I mean, that's when I really jumped back into it and worked with the producer. The producer is mostly on tweaking the story. But other than that, it was really very untouched.
Yeah. Okay, well then take us through that process of actually finding the producers and getting this film made. You have the script. What did you do with it? Sounds like you put it on Inktip at one point, but just take us through the whole process.
Okay, well, way back, it went on Inktip, and that's where I met somebody who had some interest in the story, and through him we. He and his producers tried to raise the financing for it. Unfortunately, they could not. In the interim, we did Sugar. So we did Sugar with him, and that's how Sugar was made. I eventually moved on from that producer, and through new connections that I made, I was able to meet the producer that eventually came on board, and then we financed it, half here through our company and half out through his company.
Okay, and maybe you can tell me. You said you had this new connection for this new producer. How did you get that new connection? Where did you meet him?
Just from being being out in LA and getting out there and being introduced through. The first team that was involved with the story. That's really where we met him, and he just happened to say, hey, if you're going to look for a new producer, you should talk to this guy, because I've worked with him before, and I think he would be interested in it.
Okay.
So.
Okay, perfect. And then you said, your company raised half the money, and then the other company raised, this other producer's company raised half the money. Maybe take us through that process again. I have a lot of screenwriters that come to me, they want to produce their own movie. So maybe you can just speak to raising money for an independent film like this. How do you do it, and what tips can you offer?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think that I'm I'm just incredibly fortunate, lucky to have, a partner who wants to, support in every way he can, projects that I'm involved with. I realize that that's not an easy thing to find. So I'm just fortunate in that regard. How do you find people like that? It's really just a matter of, it's not really, I wouldn't really call it networking, but like I met this, meeting one and talking, and meeting another and talking, and then bringing up the projects that you have. We didn't have all the money here. I mean, we needed money from LA, and so that connection there, that producer was really important, and his belief in the project was what brought money. Because my own investor here would not have we wouldn't have been able to have enough money, let's say. So we did need that partner. And I think that if you can talk to people and just be as completely real as possible about the story and what it is that you love about it, I think people can connect with that instead of trying to really be on such a sales kind of search for money, of investors. I think people just want to hear, and they might be more responsive and have more ideas about financing for you, or as you're raising money, trying to raise money for your film. If they just hear about the film and kind of love it, kind of fall in love with the story, and really they need to fall in love with you. It's really, really important to because they're investing in not just the story, but they're investing in you and what you're doing. And so, like I said, when our LA producer, read the story, loved the story, wanted to do it, thought it was important to do, we had great conversations, and that was that. Mm-hmm. So, and I know so I get it.
Yeah. So my next question is kind of a two-part question. This was obviously your first directorial debut, and so the first part of the question is, were you worried that you might not be able to do a good job as a director who had never directed a feature? And then even the second part of that question is, did you get any pushback from the producer or even your investor saying, well, gee, Tony, I love your script, but how do we know that you're going to be able to direct it? Maybe we should get someone else. So maybe you could speak to that a little bit, how you decided that you were the one to direct this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually was not the one who made that decision. It was my LA producer, Corey Neal. We started looking for directors, and he said to me one day, maybe you should direct it. And I said, well, I wasn't thinking along those lines. Why would you think that that's a good idea for your investor, your company, and our investor, and for the film itself? And he said that, writer-directors are definitely an established category in a sense, and they exist because the writer knows his material the best. So there were a couple of reasons. One was that we could get a director, but in our budget, we might not be able to get as good a director as we wanted that would really understand and do the right thing with the story. The second thing he said was that he worked with a lot of directors, and he could identify certain personality traits in these directors, and he thought I would be. I had those traits. Some of them are not good traits, and actually most of them are not good traits. And he said that he thought that I fit the bill very well, and I would be kind of, I find it, pretty comfortable and do a good job. Mm-hmm. And so that was his decision, or his idea. And then when I talked about it with our company and our partners here, they were just, they were supportive. It made sense to them. His argument for me directing it, it made sense. So we had support on all fronts to do this. And so what I had to do at that point was basically take a crash course in directing, and that's what I did.
Okay. And is that the direction you see as your career now as a writer-director? Will you be writing and trying to sell scripts, or you'll be pretty much writing stuff that you want to direct?
I think I'm pretty much open to any. I know that there are a lot of people that like to identify a writer as a writer, and not only that, but he's a writer of a certain genre, or he's a writer-director of dramas or whatever that might be. I'm kind of open to all of those roles. I did. No, I don't know. I felt that I fit pretty well as in the directing role. It wasn't a matter of whether I enjoyed it or not. It was difficult. It was challenging, but I did understand what Corey said about my personality and kind of fitting into that pretty well. So I would want to continue that. And in terms of writing, I'm open. I'd be open to. I'd want to at least, direct things that I've written, but I'd also be interested in directing other people's material, or writing, and not directing as well. But so any of those roles, I think, are fine for me. So I don't really try to stay in one, one genre. I mean, I write and I have written in the past things that just come into my head. So I don't want to really put, kind of put chains on that. I'd rather just do whatever comes up. And, if it happens that, let's say they're all comedies, they're all comedies. But if they're 5 different genres, they're 5 different genres. So, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I wonder if you can just briefly list off some of these traits that a director has, so maybe our listeners can decide for themselves if they have those traits too.
Well, I think what directing is a lot more than I think what probably most people in the public think a director does. I think he does a lot more than that, or he or she does a lot more than that. People in the industry are aware of these things. I think you have to be completely focused, driven, a multitasker, like a really excellent multitasker. You have to be able to be a leader and be a project manager. You have to run not just the film, you have to run the set. I mean, you're the boss, and so you have to deal with the crew. You have to pull everybody in one direction. So you have to communicate really well. You have to be there for everyone. And in terms of there's a bit of an obsessive quality your personality might have. But also, I think you have to be completely open and expose yourself and not have any kind of walls up. That's very important for talent, and you just have to be willing to, to work until it's done and put everything into it. And so I think that those were some of the qualities. There were probably some that he didn't want to tell me that he knew about me at that point, but. That's what I'd say for the most part. And one of the actors in the film, they all knew it was my first film. And Jason Begay, who's had a long career in TV and on film. And right now he's on Chicago. His show is Chicago PD on NBC. He plays the dad to the main character in Safelight. And he told me, he goes, "Look, you'll be fine." He goes, "You're a lot of directing is in the script," and it's true. I mean. And actually, that was one of the things that kind of surprised me was when we took, production, the production designer, and they were taking the script and they were like, "Okay, so you said here in this part that the house needs to look like this, so we're going to be doing that." And I was like, "Oh, really? I didn't really get that." But so beyond that, the descriptions, but the direction, the flow, and the movement in the story is in the script. So if you stick to the script and you do a good job with the script, a lot of that directing is right there for you. But more than that, I learned that I have a certain approach. I didn't know that at the start, and so I was told that, and I can see that, and I think it's just a kind of the thought that I had, again, talking with Jason about it, when he was considering coming on board the film. It was, he said, "So where do you want this film to be? Where do you want to go with it?" And my feeling from the get-go was that, we'll go where we're going to go, and we'll see what happens. I mean, we have a script that we know is solid, and we know we'll shoot the script, but, we're not completely tied to the script, and you guys will be able to bring your creativity and your talents to the film as well. And I didn't really know that I believed that until someone asked me, which was another thing that was kind of interesting to me. I did read, obviously in learning about directing, I did read a lot of Elia Kazan, read his bio, and that really struck a lot of chords for me. And so taking a certain kind of approach with actors was something that I found that I had a certain belief, and it seemed like, so I guess you'd call that an actor's director. But that's what I chose to do. And so, that's kind of how we ran with it.
Okay. So let's move in now. So now you've written the film, you've directed the film, you're done with the film. What were your next steps? Finding distribution. This strikes me as the kind of film that would play well at a lot of film festivals. Did you guys take it to film festivals? How did sort of that shake out, finding a distributor and what your festival, whether you even went to festivals or not?
Yeah, it was interesting. We had we actually went through 2 editors and 2 composers. So I think that the film, what was tricky about the film, we knew about it going in. It was that we had a balance to be found between the sweet part of the film and the gritty part of the film. And if we leaned one way too much, or rather than the other, it might not be getting the most out of the story. So our first editor, he did a great job, but at the end of the day, the producers and I discussed that we should really take a look at a new editorial. And so while that was a difficult decision, it prolonged the process, but it was in the end, the right process. We had to find an editor that was, really was able to tell the story in that way and walk that line. And I think that we got that. And the same thing with the composition. The first composer worked with me very closely, and I had being a musician, I had a certain idea for the not just the source music, but for his original music, and it just didn't work. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it just didn't work, and I needed to find someone else that would have more of a possibility to bring have the music serve its purpose. So it dragged. I used that word dragged. It dragged. It was really a long process of making that change. It's like a real slow moving boat, and so we changed course, and along the way we did send a couple of rough cuts out, but we realized that the film wasn't ready yet, so at the end, when it was completed, we did submit to festivals, but we ended up deciding, because of timing for our investors, that if we didn't have a certain festival by a certain time, we would screen it. So we had a sales agent come on board, and that was their decision. We screened it in New York and LA, and then within a month we had a distributor. So we did end up going to the Nashville Film Festival, where we had our premiere, and then to Newport Beach in LA. But that was after our sale.
Okay, perfect. So maybe you can talk just quickly how people can see Safelight. Talk about the release schedule. When is it going to be released? When is it going to be on video on demand?
Yeah, so we are being released nationally in North America on July 17th, which is next Friday. It's Friday. It's the 17th. We're going to be in select AMC theaters, actually, and available on demand and on iTunes the same day.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I will, again, I'll link to the trailer so people can check that out. What's the best way? I always like to end the interviews. What's the best way for people to kind of keep up with you and what you're doing? If you have a Twitter account, you can mention your Twitter handle. If you have a blog or a Facebook page, any of that kind of stuff, or if there's a Twitter account or Facebook page for this film, I can definitely link to that in the show notes too.
Yeah, our Twitter, or my Twitter is at Tony.Alupus, and the film is at Safelight Film, and also Safelight on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I have a personal page on Facebook, but it's mainly film stuff. That's probably the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, perfect.
Also, our trailer is up on iTunes right now, on Apple Trailers. So we had an exclusive release last Wednesday on iTunes. for the trailer, and they'll be showing a clip on the 17th, the day of the release.
Okay, perfect. Tony, this has been a great interview. As I said, I really enjoyed your film, so well done on that front. And as I said, this interview was very enlightening, so I really appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thanks so much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, really Tony. Good luck to you.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get high-quality professional evaluation of your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, characters, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We provide analysis on feature and television scripts, and we also do proofreading. So if you don't want an analysis but would like someone to proofread your script, we now offer that as well. We also will look at treatments or outlines and give you the same analysis on those. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write a logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase the writing of the logline and synopsis as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your script gets a recommend from a reader, you get a free email and fax blast to my list of industry contacts. This is the exact same blast I sell on Selling Your Screenplay, and it's also the exact same blast that I use to promote my own scripts. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. In the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Tyler Hissell. He wrote a really cool horror thriller script called Dark Was the Night. It's a script that got onto the annual blacklist a few years ago, but it still took several years to get it produced. And we go into the details of how he got his career started, how he got the script on the blacklist, and how he ultimately got the script produced. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.